Well, you have now put across a solid theory wherein you said, I'm coming to decolonization.
Right.
Wherein you said the Britishers left.
Right.
What they left behind, or what we called independence, was probably geographical independence.
Correct.
Everything else remained.
Correct.
Probably the civilization, India's consciousness,
Right.
India's soul, India's culture, India's civilization were
Right.
either diluted, polluted, or robbed.
Right.
That's what we were trying to tell us.
So, I'm looking at two different waves of colonization of Bharat. One is before the European came to Bharat. And the first European colonizer was the Portuguese. First he landed here, and then he bought, or rather he was the one to establish what we know as Madras today. It was the Portuguese who destroyed the Kapalishwar temple, which was originally situated on the banks of, or rather on the shores of the ocean. And then they built what is today known as the St. Thomas Basilica on Mount Road. So if you look at Skandapuran, that is the original location of Mylapore Kapalishwar temple, and then it had to be shifted to its current location. So the Shivalingam which was there had to be ultimately shifted. And this was not an isolated conduct because the Portuguese indulged in what is known as the Goan Inquisition, one of the worst inquisitorial phases in Christian history in its entire existence, which is rarely spoken about or taught. Today, when you look at a lot of people who confidently and maybe with a certain degree of supremacy claim Portuguese origins, they are not Portuguese at all. Their ancestors were Hindus. They were all driven out. Several communities with surnames such as Pai, who you find in Kerala today, are originally from Goa, who had to leave that place because of the genocidal, let's say, lust of the Portuguese, along with the Catholic Church of that time. So when you look at this history, then you ask, okay, so what was the position before? Prior to the arrival of the Christian European colonizer, we also had a massive wave of genocidal invasions, starting from, most people think that it started with the arrival of Muhammad bin Qasim in 712 CE, but it started much before that. In the 7th century itself, they had started probing Gujarat and Sindh, but they were repelled successfully. And for the first time, Muhammad bin Qasim gained success in 712 CE. Then for 3 centuries, they are unable to cross the Sindh because of Hindu resistance. And then starts the Gori Ghazni wave, which leads to serious loss of territory and culture. Now, in light of that, I had to ask myself, a culture which was so confident of its identity and which was responding to invasions in a language that the invader understood, why did it suddenly develop a serious inferiority complex post the arrival of the Christian European colonizer? Why is it that we started doubting the existence of our society as a civilized society, as a fair and just society, as an advanced society? Why did we start asking those questions of ourselves? And then I realized that the root cause is the education system, because our education system traces its origins to 1835. When for the first time they undertook a detailed survey of the number of Veda Pathashalas and Gurukuls across the country, and they realized that this is where the strength of Bharat still lies. And despite the invasions, it continues to have a clear identity of its own, and therefore they wanted to finish it and weed it out lock, stock and barrel. There's a fantastic book by Sri Dharampalji called The Beautiful Tree, where he shows very clearly that contrary to popular perception and the propaganda that is actually pushed in the name of communism, Bharat's Gurukulas have always been open to all the Chaturvarnas, and the numbers are crystal clear. In fact, the number of people who are so-called non-Brahmins outnumbered obviously the Brahmins, and 4th Varna was heavily dominant as students and as teachers in these Gurukulas, because there were different subjects who had different experts. Okay, so how is it that these aspects were completely submerged and brushed under the carpet? I think it's the product of the education system. And therefore, it is the education system that gave us new ideas about our society, about what is political independence, about religion and whatnot. So there is the concept of conversion to another religion. There is the concept of converting the religion itself. So either you can convert from Hinduism to Christianity, or you can create a new Christianized Hinduism. And that is effectively the product of the English education system. And so if you look at how our ideas changed and we developed a serious inferiority complex. It starts with the introduction and the entrenchment of the English education system. And most of our so-called independence leaders were products of this system. There were certainly some fantastic exceptions who managed to retain their respect for this country and its civilization despite the education system. But that was more a matter of probability and chance, not by design. So the idea was to show how while the white man left, he left back brown white men, the brown sahibs as we call them today, who significantly took forward the very same mentality, the very same approach to the native civilization as the white man. So I see that as a handover of power and less of independence from the white colonizer to the brown colonizer, except that this time the colonizer was the native himself. So that's the answer.